Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic which is important not just for your UPSC examination but also for your overall health. The topic is trans fats. Now why are we discussing it in UPSC examination? First of all, let's talk about that. So trans fat as a topic has two aspects to it. One, it is in science and tech about what is trans fat, how it impacts our body. So GS3, of course. It is also about our economy, right? Because we are having right now, let's say, the Eat Right movement and various kind of different initiatives in which we are trying to improve our demographic dividend. And a part of improving our demographic dividend is to reduce the consumption of trans fat, because as we will discuss in this lecture, trans fat has a lot of negative consequences. So what is trans fat? How does it impact us? We will discuss all of it, and this topic becomes important from your GS3 perspective. It becomes more important from your prelims perspective. But even in GS3, you can get questions around it, and we'll discuss how. So, first of all, let me just tell you about the notes that you ask about in comments. So, the notes for this class, either you can go for the Shunya books, right? That we have 4 GS books, GS 1, 2, 3, 4. You will find the notes in Shunya book. So for trans fat, you will find this particular topic in GS 3. Or you can go for making handwritten notes while the class is going on. Okay. So handwritten notes or Shunya book. Make sure that when you are writing handwritten notes, you are making it in such a manner that you are able to go back to it, right? You should be able to go back to it. You should be able to find that particular topic again when you want to. Okay. So that is how you will get the notes for this particular class. Regarding where this particular topic will be important, I have already told you that it will be important in GS3. Now, in GS3, it is difficult that you will get a separate question. Okay. Separate question is difficult. Separate question is difficult, but you should be able to use the impact of trans fats in a question which you might get about the Eat Right movement, about demographic dividend. So trans fat would not be a direct overall threat, but the aspect of health should be having some reference to trans fat as a threat. Right? So as we know, more than communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases are now increasing as a threat, and trans fat increases the non-communicable diseases. So we will talk about that. So with this, let's start with our lecture. Now, when we talk about trans fat, you need to understand that it is unsaturated fat, right? It is unsaturated fat, and it goes through a process of hydrogenation. In very common language, you see that whenever a set of oil is being reused again and again, you open a set of oil, a packet of oil, you fry something in it, then you fry something else in it again in the same oil, and you will see that slowly that oil will keep on getting thicker, right? The oil will keep on getting thicker. Why is this oil getting thicker? This oil is getting thicker because it is being hydrogenated, right? Hydrogenation ho raha hai uska. And because of this, the ease with which our body can digest this is reducing. Okay. So just imagine this particular, through this graph, let's imagine that these are your blood vessels. Okay. Now, blood vessels will be responsible for flowing of the blood. But just imagine a situation wherein there are these deposits on the sides of the blood vessel, right? This means that the passage for the blood to flow has reduced. Earlier it was having this much passage, now it is just having this much passage. And the more trans fat you keep on eating, the more this passage keeps on getting narrower. It makes blood flow difficult. That is what leads to heart diseases. That is what, because it is, just simple language mein samjho, it is a sticky substance. It is a substance that cannot go down your digestive system very easily, and that is why it becomes a source of heart diseases. And you will be surprised, if you don't already know about trans fat, you will be surprised to know that trans fat is present from the smallest of your chips packet to something which can be as healthy looking as oats. Okay, because even things like oats or cornflakes also, they are ultimately fried at one level. Okay, when you talk about cornflakes, anything that is crispy has to be fried. Okay, it cannot get it cannot get crispy automatically. So the things, the Western habits that we see as being very healthy, they are also having some sort of trans fat. So trans fat is a kind of unsaturated fat which goes through repeated process of hydrogenation, making the digestion of this particular fat more and more difficult. Now, where is this trans fat found mostly? It is found in processed food, mostly. Fine. So any packed food, including your biscuits, including your so-called healthy biscuits, your chips, and because see these things, why are these things so cheap? Why even today you can get a 5 rupee biscuit? It is because trans fats as a product are easier to obtain. They are easier, they are cheaper, they do not lead to increase in the final product, and that is why you will see that they are being constantly used. But they are there in process. But does that mean that any unprocessed food that you are having, let's say a local samosa that you are having at a vendor, or tikki that you are having at a vendor, does that mean that these things do not have trans fat? They have trans fat. Okay, just because they are made freshly in front of you does not mean that they do not have trans fat. Their trans fat comes from the fact that the oil that they are being cooked in is being reused again and again and again, and that oil becomes a processed food in itself. Okay, so this is the reality of trans fats. Now we'll talk about why are trans fats being used so much at all. Okay, reasons for usage of trans fats. So first thing is, our cooking methods have evolved in such a way. So let's just talk about something as simple as a puri sabzi. And I'm not scaring you. I don't want to scare you कि आप पूरी सब्जी खाना बंद कर दो, you stop eating everything. It's not that. But just understand the logic of it. When you go for making this puri, you take a kadhai full of oil, right? A whole utensil full of oil, and you deep fry the puri in it. Now it is a lot of oil, and the common sense for us says that we should not be throwing away all the oil because we have fried 10 puris in it. So we will reuse that oil in small parts. And the more we reuse it, the more it gets hydrogenated. And the more it gets hydrogenated, the more we fall for the trans fat. It transforms itself into trans fat. So our cooking methods are like that. Then trans fat also has this very unique thing of enhancing the flavor and texture. See, there are some oils. For example, there is this thing called refined oil, and then there is mustard oil. Okay, you will always, when you talk with the elders and when you talk about kind of oils that should be used. You will always hear people and the elders saying that you should be using mustard oil, which is called sarson ka tel, instead of using refined oil. Why? Because refined oil as it is, it does provide a very good flavor and texture, and mustard oil does provide a pungent smell to the food, right? But overall, the processed oil that this refined oil is difficult to digest. Okay, so that is why you will be suggested mustard oil or olive oil. Even olive oil is not very tasty to have as such, because refined oil can have multiple flavors, right? But the flavor and the texture that these trans fats provide, they actually make them easier to use. Then overall, there is lack of awareness. When I talked about cornflakes, it is difficult for you to understand that even cornflakes can have trans fats. But which oil they are fried in, how they are made, right? How many times that oil was fried, you don't know. So even that can be a source. The most important thing is that trans fats are very cost effective. Okay. So you can compare it with let's say 250 ml of olive oil and 1 liter of refined oil having similar prices, or maybe olive oil having more price. Olive oil you will be getting in small bottles, right? And the refined oil you'll be getting in big packets. You won't be getting it in small bottles because olive oil is very expensive. So things like cost always have the topmost priority, and that is why the trans fat, using trans fat overall becomes easier. And trans fat also increases the shelf life of product. So why do you think there are products which have 6 months or 9 months of best before, best before these many months, or maybe 12 months also? Any natural product which you create, you cannot preserve it beyond a certain period of time. Even let's say there are few natural things, let me tell you, like pickles, right? Pickles, we are able to preserve. Why? Because we put so much oil in it, we put so much salt in it, we put so much of masala in it, that pickles we are able to preserve. But that requires a lot of preservatives. Now, when you have things like packed, ready to eat food, when you have things like, very easy to find things, then you should ask yourself this question, that how is the shelf life of a sabzi being claimed to be 6 months as such? Okay. So that is where trans fats enter into our system, because they are everywhere. And this aspect can only be solved at the government level. This is not something that individuals at their levels can solve, because please understand that if you talk, even let's talk about healthy snacking, this very new term that has come into the picture, healthy snacking. So healthy snacking, you see that you can still get a 10 rupees chips and the same quantity of chips. Let's say chalo 10 nahi 20 rupees ka mil jayega. The same quantity of chips, when it is in a healthy form, you will get it at 60 rupees or maybe even 100 rupees, that these are air fried or whatever. But that doesn't make a difference. India being a developing country, that doesn't make a difference. You'll anyway end up going for the 10 rupees packet, 20 rupees packet. So that is the reason. Now comes the most important part of this particular topic, that what are the effects of trans fats. See, it has all the negative effects. I'm not saying that fats are all negative. Fats are an essential component of a body, right? Fats help you to produce and to retain energy when your body needs that energy. So fats are important. But when we're talking about trans fats, these are unsaturated fats which are created due to hydrogenation. They have these health effects. So as I told you through the heart, the blood vessel example, that heart diseases, the risk of heart diseases increases. So the more trans fats you keep on having, the deposits in your vessels and eventually maybe in your heart, they keep on increasing. Leads to obesity and weight gain, and obesity and weight gain in itself is a pandemic, right? It is the reason for so many other diseases, so it's a problem. Then it gives rise to diabetes. So the more trans fats you have in your system, the lesser able your system is to utilize insulin. And you all must be knowing that insulin is a sugar restrictive agent in our body, and if our body is not able to use insulin, we are having type 2 type diabetes. Right? There are two type of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is when insulin is not being produced naturally at all. And type 2 is when we are not able to utilize the insulin that is being produced. So the more and more trans fats that are going into our system, please listen carefully, the more our body becomes unable to utilize our insulin, and that leads to the risk of type 2 diabetes. Then of course, there is no doubt about the fact that the more obese we get, the more unhealthy we get, the risk of cancer keeps on increasing, and cancer is hence called a lifestyle disease. Things like cancer, yes, this is true actually that cancer also runs in families, but some genes are more susceptible to cancer than others. But overall, when we talk about cancer, it is very, in today's lifestyle, it is very easy to develop cancerous tendencies because of the lifestyle that we are having, right? Then it can also lead to liver dysfunction. So generally we associate liver problems only with alcohol. But even when we talk about trans fats, it does impact our liver because it interferes with delta 6 desaturase. You don't need this information, I'm just telling you. Delta 6 desaturase, right? Which is the natural functioning mechanism of liver. So just like alcohol interferes with the functioning of liver, trans fat and excessive trans fat also intrudes the natural functioning of your liver. Then the more trans fat you have, the more you are prone to acne, right? Why is this? Is because trans fats, see, trans fat overall does not have anything positive to do for your body. There are some aspects, there are some food products wherein trans fat is naturally there. There is no doubt about it. But in today's lifestyle, we are surrounded by trans fat in everything that we are consuming. Okay. So it will also lead to acne because trans fat overall is deficient is in omega 3 acid, right? Omega 3 acid, which has purifying capacities. Now you don't need to remember all of this. This is just for your information. You don't need to write all of this. But when you cover a mains topic, you need to cover it in such a way that you can of course use it in your mains. But even if it is asked in your prelims, something or the other just clicks in your mind and you can solve a particular prelims question. So that is there. Then it also leads to endothelium damage. Now what is endothelium? As I told you, endothelium is the inner lining of your blood vessels, right? So the inner lining of your blood vessels, it leads to deposits, fatty deposits in those linings, and it eventually gives rise to your heart diseases. Okay. It does lead to diminished memory also. All these things are interrelated, right? It also leads to infertility in women. It is very important that if you are having more and more trans fats as a woman, women's bodies are such that they are already very sensitive. So trans fats, and there is so lack of awareness, that anything we find in the market, we end up eating that. But it can be a disastrous thing to do because trans fats impact fertility as well. So the future generations also can be impacted, right? And behavioral irritability and aggression. So it is a very common saying that you are what you eat. Why do you eat anything? You eat something so that your cells can grow, they can regenerate, right? You can be alive. But if you are eating trans fats on a daily basis, that will lead to showing in the all these forms. You know, you will have acne, you will have obesity, you will be overall irritable. If you are having healthy things, if you are having fruits, if you are having vegetables, boiled vegetables, your body will feel very light. So that is what trans fats do, all these health impacts. Though we might think that trans fats, the impact of trans fats are limited only to health issues, that is not correct. Trans fats also end up impacting economy as a whole. They end up impacting society as a whole. So if our workforce is obese, if it is unhealthy, then our productivity also decreases. And we do not want that. We do not want a entire population which is unfit, right? Then higher healthcare cost will happen, right? Now things like, let's say for example, because of obesity, things like liposuction have become very common. So instead of people going on towards a healthy way of reducing their weight, people are going for the easier way, that is liposuction. And what has this done? This has done to the emergence of a whole industry wherein liposuction is being performed. It's a very dangerous surgery, let me tell you, liposuction, right? Quality of life is reduced, and overall a stigma is also created in the overall society that this is an unfit society. We talk about Americans like that, you know. Americans have so much of processed food. Americans have so much of Coke in their diet, you know, cola, Coke, all of that. The cold drinks, which they call as soft drinks, as opposed to hard drinks or whatever. But overall, the fact remains that their lifestyle is very unhealthy, and that's why obesity in America is a major issue. Okay. But even Indian diet that way eventually has been in since time immemorial, it has been very oil heavy. There is no denial for that fact. Fine. Then economic healthcare cost will increase. Food prices will also overall keep on increasing, and food industry overall will be impacted. This is the effect of trans fat, a comprehensive. Now, every topic does not have political aspects to it, right? This is a topic of GS3, and you must be knowing, you must be aware where to stop yourself. In this topic, if you end up even creating some points which are political, they are useless. There is no political point over here. There's no populism, nothing. It is a problem which impacts everyone. It is not a political issue. It is not that kind of an issue, right? No historical, no nothing. So always when you are writing an answer, make sure that your logic stays with you. Your common sense stays with you. Not that you've just written social, political, economic, environmental, historical. तो सब लिखना ही लिखना है. There are no political aspects to trans fat. Okay, that is there. Now this is very important. Why trans fat elimination is very difficult. Apart from the obvious, we will see that there is very limited awareness on what trans fat actually is and in which products it is present. So, you know, in things like, for example, there are aspects of advertising in Bonvita. Bonvita, since time immemorial, since the time that I can remember, Bonvita has been labeled as a healthy drink, right? It has been labeled as a healthy drink. But is it a healthy drink? No, not at all. It is full of chocolate, it is full of sugar, and it is not good for kids. It will even lead to the trans fat impact of it, right? So there's limited awareness. Then dependency on dependency of traditional foods. Like I told you, things like samosa, which is a sort of a national snack. Whenever someone is happy, whenever guests are over there, you will have samosa, you will serve samosa. Now these things are of course dependent on oil, right? And you would not want as a small shop that you have a very expensive oil with you, right? Then cost and availability, the healthier alternatives are pretty expensive, you don't want to shift towards them, right? Then resistance from the food industry for this very particular reason, that the cost is higher and this transition will be very difficult from trans fats to any other kind of oil. Then the enforcement is also limited. There is lack of research, cultural factors, and there is export by nation. So there are nations which have banned the manufacturing of trans fats, but they're still exporting trans fat heavy products from other nations, right? So that is a big problem. Okay. Now the most important aspect which you need to remember is our initiatives that have been taken. So you can divide it in two categories. One is initiatives taken by India and the other is the international initiatives. So you don't have to memorize all of them, but every such initiative will be having some or the other relevance in the healthcare aspect, in the demographic dividend aspect, etc. Okay? So there is this campaign, freedom from trans fat at 75. What does 75 mean here? It's the 75 years of independence, right? This is run by FSSAI, right? FSSAI, Food Safety and Security, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Fine. Now here where we have decided, FSSAI has decided that the trans fatty acids, that is the trans fats, for 2021, it would be limited to 3%, right? Not more than 3% trans fat in any set of products. And 2022, the goal was 2%. Before this, 5% was allowed. Okay. So these are the FSSAI guidelines. Of course, not all of this has been, we have not been able to achieve all of this very rightly, but yes, we have started on that journey. Then Eat Right movement, very important. There is understanding and there is awareness that is being spread about how and why to eat the right kind of products. Then Heart Attack Rewind. You would be seeing that especially after COVID-19 and the infection that spread after COVID-19, we are seeing multiple cases of heart attacks in young people. So what the research is showing is that the COVID-19 has weakened our immune system and it has also exacerbated the current non-communicable diseases that we have. So for example, hypertension, for example, diabetes. These are the non-communicable diseases that we have and these are being exacerbated because of the COVID-19. Then Swachh Bharat Yatra. It was a cycle marathon which is called the cyclothon. It's a cycle marathon called the cyclothon which was being run, wherein the impact of trans fat was also one of the aspects. Then Green Purple Initiative. Green Purple Initiative is around teaching trans fat free cooking to the people. Teaching trans fat free cooking to the people. And FSSAI, if any product is trans fat free, has mandated and has encouraged that you have to put a trans fat free logo and you will be, there are some kind of incentives that will also be provided. Globally, this is very important and this can be asked in your prelims as well, that what is the WHO replace strategy all about? This WHO replace strategy is actually all about the elimination of trans fat. Replace the trans fats. Okay. Then there is Global Health Advocacy Incubator. The Global Health Advocacy Incubator, it works with the initiatives which are trying to remove trans fats. So you would be seeing, you know, even in mass culture like Shark Tank, for example, we are seeing that there are multiple startups which are trying to bring in fat free and trans fat free ways of munching and everything. So Global Health Advocacy Incubator tries to achieve all of that. Then Bloomberg Philanthropies, it is a private initiative which is trying to maintain and encourage a healthy lifestyle. WHO certification program for trans fat elimination. The name itself says it is a certification program so that trans fats can be clearly certified that this product is trans fat heavy and this is not. Okay, that is there. And overall ban. Some countries have overall banned the aspect of trans fats, right? Denmark has banned, so you can write Denmark, Chile, Switzerland, but of course you will not see US in this list because US is very heavy on trans fats as such. Okay. Now let's talk about the way forward. I hope till now it is very clear what is the role of trans fats, why they need to be eliminated, why they are important to be studied, because our demographic dividend is being hampered by diseases like diabetes and hypertension, etc., and they are being reduced that way, demographic dividend. So way forward, we of course need to enhance awareness. That is sine qua non, as I say. There needs to be awareness about which products have trans fats in them. Then healthy eating has to be encouraged. So here eat right movement also becomes very important. The best practice policy, so the companies or the enterprises which are trying to eliminate trans fat from their production, they need to be brought forward and even incentivized. So for example, the public sector, the priority sector lending norms can be applied to such companies which are actually trying to reduce and eliminate trans fat. Support to small and medium sized enterprises, as I told you, it can be done through the priority sector lending initiatives. Collaboration can be done, public private partnership, right? So eat right movement and the public private enterprises that are working towards eating right, we can combine that. Then incentives can be given to the companies who are actually, so reduced taxation, reduced GST requirements, these things can be encouraged. Nutrition labeling is already happening, and if trans fat is there, if trans fat is not there in the product, that is being mentioned in bold letters, although we as consumers really don't care about whether the trans fat is there or not, but now it is being given, right? So that is there. Regulations, that is by 2022, 2% trans fat is to be the ceiling limit that needs to be ensured. And consumer education needs to be increased. We as consumers, we were anyway never bothered with the amount of fat or protein in a particular product, but mass culture, popular culture, which has actually encouraged these kind of products, needs to now discourage them. And there will be resistance from the industry, of course, but we need to fight that resistance, because as a country, our population is aging faster, our population is becoming unhealthier, and trans fats become a big reason for this phenomena. Then this is a very unique initiative that can be taken. We all know that products like alcohol and cigarettes, they are designated as sin goods. Why don't we designate trans fats as sin goods as well, so that the taxation on them can be increased, the cost of the final product can be increased, and consumers shall be discouraged to buy the trans fat heavy goods. And eventually our goal has to be that we eliminate trans fats from our food products, so that overall population and quality of population improves. This is a very generic point that should come towards the end of your answer if you have space. That is it. But this is just for your understanding that our research budget is anyway very low, and we need to research more about the impact of trans fat, and more than the impact of trans fat, how to convey it to the customers, that is people like us, that we should not be consuming them. Okay, that is there. So that is all for this class. I hope you derived some value out of this. As I told you earlier, this will not be coming as a direct question in your mains examination. This, you can count this as peripheral knowledge, which you can use in aspects like health, which you can use in aspects like demographic dividend and the challenges surrounding public health. So trans fat as a whole phenomena is challenging our public health. And the way forward and the initiatives taken that I have told you, they are good for any answer that you can write about health. So that's all for this class. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.